I call this budget committee meeting to order at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. Roll call, please.
Counselor Funderburg.
Here.
Counselor Duffloff.
Sorry.
Excuse, Chair. Counselor Katie McMillan.
Also excused.
Counselor Smith.
Excused.
Counselor Dennis McMillan.
Here.
Counselor McLean.
Here.
Mayor Sipe.
Here.
Committee Member Cotterall.
Excused.
Committee Member Zittercobb.
Here.
Committee Member Simmons.
Here.
Committee Member Cahill.
Here.
Committee Member Pratt.
Here.
Committee Member Osorio.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of agenda for this evening. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion. We approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Funderburg.
Aye.
Counselor Dennis McMillan.
Aye.
Counselor Counselor McLean.
Aye.
Mayor Sipe.
Aye.
Committee Members Zittercobb. Committee Member Simmons.
Here. It's working.
Oh, yeah.
Yea or nay to approve the agenda?
Yes. Yeah. Say yes, sir. Yeah. Yea or nay. Yes.
Committee Member Cahill.
Yes.
Committee Member Pratt.
Yes.
Committee Member Osorio.
Yes.
Item number 5, consent agenda. Nothing on that. So we'll move on to item number 6. The preliminary budget review and discussion. We will pick up at number 11, personnel expenses, where we left off last night.
Thank you. And just a reminder to those who weren't here last night. So this is our budget workshop, not our formal budget meeting. And so tonight we have the opportunity to discuss and ask questions, but no formal deliberation or decisions can be made. Because we are continuing a discussion of the packet in its whole, just to be on the safe side, I would again like to provide a time for the city councilors to declare an actual conflict of interest on the stipend issue. I don't anticipate that we'll talk about that specifically, but since it is included in the packet. So if any councilors at this time would like to declare an actual conflict of interest for the stipend.
I, Dennis McMillan, like to declare an actual conflict of interest due to the stipend.
I, Corinne Funderburg, would like to declare an actual conflict of interest for the stipend. Thank you.
Bruce McLean, declare an actual conflict of interest with regard to stipend.
I, Caden Sipe, decline the stipend, even though I will still declare a conflict of interest. An actual conflict of interest.
Thank you. And are there any other conflicts of interest that anybody would like to disclose at this time? Okay, I think we're good to proceed then. Thank you. So we left off at number 11, which is page 21 of the packet. We are going to move into a discussion on personnel expenses for next year. So I did highlight several new employee requests that staff is recommending that we move forward for approval if funding allows. The first is for an additional code enforcement officer. So after the past several years, I mean, really past decade, we've seen that steady increase in population and housing development and business activity. And our current code enforcement officer is just constantly busy and unfortunately spending a lot of her time responding to dog or cat issues or overgrown weeds, but we have several a workload that far exceeds her capacity. And so we are recommending the addition of a new code enforcement officer. This officer would also help respond to homeless encampments if needed, and just make sure that we're being more proactive rather than reactive when it comes to code enforcement. That position cost, including benefits, is estimated at 140,000. And when I talk about cost estimates, because we don't have employees in these positions yet, when we forecast them, we do assume like a full family benefit package because it's our most expensive one. So really, the new employees when come in would be at that level or lower.
Does this 140,000 include the benefits
Yes.
package also?
Yes.
Okay. Another question, have you had a lot of issues with homeless encampments in the city?
Yes. Yeah, if you want to talk about location, I mean, we can talk, there's been activity down by the ODOT way station. The city is going to be taking over some parcels on River Road where there historically have been a lot of issues, and we anticipate. Yeah, and also the post office.
What kind of authority would a code enforcement person have versus a police department?
You want to talk about that? So
There's definitely delineations between them. With code enforcement, in order for it to hold up in court, the code enforcement officer has to see it with their own two eyes versus an officer that can investigate and come to evidence and present that to a judge and so on. Sort of number one. But code enforcement officers are underneath the purview of the police chief and the police department, and are duly authorized to enforce the code of the city and city ordinances, which they certainly can issue citations and issue notices for within state law, of course, if it's an illegal encampment, for example, that they have typically it's a 72-hour notice in order for them to relocate.
So what would be the benefit of having a additional code enforcement versus utilizing the existing police force?
You could do it with an officer. Typically, our officers don't get into just code enforcement, but that certainly isn't doesn't mean that they couldn't do that. This is just more of a narrow focus of a specific type of activity within our enforcement of our code, and code enforcement officer comes at a significantly lesser price tag. A level 1 fresh out of the academy officer is going to be right around 185 to 190,000 for that person with full benefits and so on.
Thank you.
any other questions on the code enforcement position?
You guys have a number of like tickets that get submitted for code enforcement versus like the actual number they get to in like a week or a month or a year?
So we don't have any kind of quota or anything like that when it comes to whether it's speeding or code enforcement. Our approach to code enforcement has been to be more of trying to work with the community, give them opportunities to come into compliance voluntarily. And so we'll meet with them at first. We'll try to see if there's a financial other kind of resource or something that's inhibiting them from complying with the code. But we do always give them also very matter-of-factly and direct I guess instructions on how to come in the code or what the consequences would be if they wouldn't comply. So we take that sort of neighbor approach at first, and then if it becomes clear that they're not going to comply, then we start papering them and issuing the citation.
In terms of things they were able to get to versus things they weren't able to get to, like the current code enforcement, would you say like there's a need that we get 100 calls and they're only able to respond to like 50? Like what's the median for that?
We haven't assembled that data. We could look at it that way. Generally speaking, though, we look at our code enforcement right now is almost exclusively reactive and not proactive. It's significantly complaint driven. And even just at that level, we're not able to keep up with the workload being almost entirely reactive. We have several properties we've identified in the city that, for example, they're like hoarding properties, and so they're providing a public safety issue for not only themselves but for their neighbors as far as fire dangers, rodent pests, and things like that that are encroaching into the public health and safety of their neighbors. We have other properties where trees are encroaching too far into the right of way where we get a windstorm and we have branches and things like that breaking. Those are the responsibilities of those property owners. We just haven't had the opportunity to be proactive, to go out and be friendly and ask people to come into compliance with a lot of the code. Most of the time in July and August, it's a lot of weed abatement. People's weeds, they didn't cut it. They're getting, 3 feet tall and things like that. Or we are constantly dealing. You look around you until you don't actually see a whole lot of graffiti. That's because we've made that a priority to make sure that whenever we see it, we get rid of it. There's lots of reasons for that. But anyway, yeah.
Does that job also include some training in mental health, dealing with people with mental health issues? Because it sounds like that's what they're going to be running up against, especially with the homeless population.
Yeah, so there's a series of training and Officer Doug, you could probably get into a little bit more than me, but our code enforcement officers participate in not all, but a lot of the same type of de-escalation training and mental health training as well. But they are not a certified officer, so they don't get trained to that level, but they do. They carry sometimes they carry defense tactical weapons, so maybe pepper spray and maybe an asp. They'd be approved for that, but I don't think she carries an asp right now. I think she has pepper spray. In fact, I know she does. But other than that, no, they don't have just only a defense level.
Dave, how do we know we're being reactive instead of being proactive without analytics and data behind this?
Well, I guess we have the data. We don't have it assembled in a report. So we can put that together in a report if that's what you're looking at. What we have is just continuing to meet with the department each month and meeting with the officers and meeting with the chief. And so as we're looking at, we've gone through other things here in the packet earlier as we're trying to, for example, we know that River Road parks that we're going to be taking on from the county, and we're looking to do some invasives removals and so on. We know that's a hot spot for illegal encampments. For example, you drive, in fact, they're there right now. I drove by there earlier today. They're still there. And so we know we have some of that. We know that we've continued to see, now that we do have path and we're able to track that data more closely, we do have a better grasp onto our homeless population and those illegal encampments. But we haven't put together in a report on how many complaints did she get, how quickly did she respond, what was the final result. We have all that. We just haven't put all that together in a report.
I do have incident counts, just because we put some statistical information in our budget document. And so for the previous fiscal year ending June 30th of 25, there was a total of 759 code-related incidents, and they break that down between animals, property, and vehicles. And then for the fiscal year prior to that, the total count for the 3 categories was 640 incidents. So it was a pretty significant increase in incidents in just 1 year.
In terms of like population size, have we ever had less or more code enforcement as the population increases?
No, we've had 1 code enforcement officer as long as I've been here for 14 years.
Does this come with an additional cost? People, equipment?
Yes, if it's approved, we would need to allocate funding for training and for a vehicle.
Is that in a future item, or is that something we're just going to add to this line item here?
The cost would be reflected in the training budget and then in the capital equipment budget. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next one. So this accounting tech was a position that we requested last year, but did not have enough funding. And so we deferred this for a year. I will tell you the 265% increase that's listed in your packet was from last year. It's gone up even more since then. I think this week alone, I approved about 500 invoices. So our volume of invoices that we're processing here at City Hall has just gone up tremendously. And really for a variety of reasons. Over the past several years, we've acquired a golf course, we've taken over the marina and RV park, we have festivals that are going on. So just the sheer volume of stuff that's going on, especially as our FTE count citywide continues to grow. So this position would primarily serve as a accounts payable clerk, but could also serve as a backup at our front counter so that when either our utility clerk or court clerk are not here, then we would have secondary coverage and be able to reduce wait times at the front counter. That position cost, including benefits, is estimated at $120,000. Any questions there? Okay. The next position that we have listed is an HR director. This is not a new position for us. We're recommending reclassification. So right now we have an HR manager and we are recommending that he be reclassified to a department director. The number of employees, full-time equivalent employees that the city has grown from 43 in the fiscal 2021 budget to 81.5, so almost doubled. For the fiscal year 26 budget. It's an increase of about 86%. And just the that's our full-time employee count. We also have rotating seasonal employees. We have like event specific employees, and the amount of coordination that's going on through our human resources division has just grown exponentially. This position would oversee the next position that's listed, which would be an HR analyst. And that analyst would take over the more routine day-to-day functions of the HR department, really processing payroll. Right now, our HR manager processes payroll, and then all of that gets reviewed by me. So it would eliminate some workload for my office while also ensuring that we have cross coverage for payroll. I am not allowed to do payroll myself. So right now we have Jonathan get pretty creative about his vacation requests so they don't fall on payroll times. The reclassification to the director position, we anticipate that cost would be about $30,000. To bring on an HR analyst would be around $150,000. One other duty that we are recommending that the analyst would take on if funded would be to help with policy upgrades. Initially, priority would be to finish the development of our safety policy manual. We have a template from CIS, but it's not fully configured to the city. It's a very comprehensive document. And right now they've been working, our safety committee has been trying to bite off chunks of that manual a little bit by little bit, but it takes a long time. And so having a dedicated employee to take that over would be fantastic. Any questions about human resources?
How would the HR manager, like, in the hierarchy, in the chart, like where are they horizontal? Where are they the same?
So right now we have several managers. We have like our parks and recreation manager. I have an administrative services manager who oversees our front counter finance staff. Yeah, and then we have a economic development manager that lives in the community development department. So we have like one grade where all of our management level staff are. Okay. The next item is municipal judge. So we currently contract with Teresa for judicial services. She was nice enough to come back out of retirement and continue to work part-time for us, but she has told us that her time has come and she's ready to be done. So we need to do some succession planning there. And so just looking at statutory requirements and best practices, we've consulted with our city attorney, and the recommendation and the best practice is to operate to have a judge who is in fact an attorney. And so we are anticipating that even to bring on a part-time judge who is an attorney would be quite a bit more expensive than what we are currently paying. With doing some initial high-level research, we think it'll be about $90,000 more than what we're paying now. Teresa is she's working 10 hours a week, and we would probably plan for some crossover, which is why that increase is probably a little bit higher in this first year than in future years, because it would be nice to have our new judge overlap with Teresa for at least a few months if possible.
What is the current judge being paid? You said it's an increase of 90,000. So what would that make it total?
I'll pull it up and then I'll get back to you. Let me log into my.
Would the judge only be presiding over the court, or would there be another job?
She would be working with our court clerk that we have, but she would be they would be here just presiding over any municipal court. We have code citations from our police officers, and then we have a large volume of citations that come in from the port of entry, the way station.
Is it like a full-time position, or is it more? No.
No, we're not.
Type thing, or as like a certain amount of hours, or?
We're not anticipating a full-time position would be needed. If in the future there may be a need for an additional court clerk. Really, the bulk of the time-consuming activity is with the data entry that comes from the court. We have tried to automate some of our processes where we can import certain citations, but even when you're importing citations, you still have to go through, verify that all of the information is correct, and then you have to manually attach citations into our system so that the backup documentation is there. There's processing of suspensions and stuff like that. So I wouldn't anticipate that we would need a full-time judge, but there might be the possibility of an additional court clerk at a later time. Sorry, I started gabbing. I'm almost there.
So is that $90,000 increase for a municipal clerk, or is it purely just for the judge?
No, for a judge. The all-in cost rate now is about 40,000. Okay. The next item there is maintenance worker. The two employees that we're talking about now that were requested are specific to the water department. And the reason for these new workers is that we have a new water treatment facility that is being constructed by Amazon and turned over to the city. It will be a city asset, and we need staff to run that. We do anticipate each of these positions costing around 108,000, but they will be fully funded by user rates, by industrial user rates. So these positions will not increase residential utility rates at all. The next item, the golf course maintenance lead, that is also a reclassification, not a new position. So the way that our golf course maintenance crew is currently structured, we have a superintendent, and then we have several maintenance workers. It's often that the superintendent is off-site, either for other operational responsibilities or at training, and there's nobody at the golf course to be that secondary point of contact. All of our other public works divisions have leads that fall under the director and superintendent. So they are requesting that we reclassify one of the maintenance worker positions into a lead for about $10,000.
just thinking more broadly, would is it necessary to classify the position as golf course lead versus just maintenance lead?
So they would technically be called maintenance lead the way that our union contract reads. What's a little unique about the golf course is the maintenance staff from the golf course is technically falls under the Parks and Rec department. So they ultimately report to Esmeralda, whereas our other public works divisions report through Public Works and report to Scott. So the golf course is a little bit different. Okay. Is the red light on? When you talk, just turn that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, the next item there, number 8, is the planning technician. So our community development department has a increased demand for planning services, including zoning inquiries, site plan, business license review, and coordination on urban growth boundary applications. Right now we have an associate planner and our director are handling all of those requests, and their work capacity with other duties is pretty taxed. And so they have requested this position to help improve service levels, reduce processing time, and just ensure consistent application of development regulations and free up time for senior staff to focus on complex planning function and priority initiatives. The position cost, including benefits for this one, is estimated at $120,000. I will say we have kind of ranked this list, although some of these are funded out of different pots. Kind of what you've seen up to this point is how Dave and I looked at priority wise. So if funding is tight in the general fund, this is probably one that we would recommend to bring back to you for the following year. Number 9, this youth employee opportunities. This came out of a conversation that we had with city council at their retreat and looking at ways to engage with the youth in our community to give them positive experiences and something to be involved with and help them stay out of trouble. We are looking to hire 3 youth for year-round part-time positions, averaging about 10 hours a week. Initially, we talked about potentially having 1 employee in Public Works, 1 at the library, and 1 in Parks and Recreation. We estimate the total cost of the program on the high end to be $50,000. That's that one. And then just for your guys' information, we received a lot of employee requests this year. We always tell our department heads to ask for the moon. No, we probably can't fund everything. So I did provide a list. And if extra funding is available in any of these respective funds and we are able to fund a position, I would let you guys know that that's an addition when I present you with the proposed budget. Some of those requests included additional maintenance workers for streets, parks, and wastewater, an administrative assistant for the community development department, an additional building inspector, and a deputy city recorder.
Melissa, regarding the youth opportunities,
Yeah.
how much are you guys planning on paying them an hour? Is this going to be like minimum wage?
Yes.
Are those jobs accumulating sick time and benefits?
They wouldn't have enough hours to qualify for like insurance or PERS benefits, but they would accumulate sick time at the required rate for like every 30 hours that they work, they get so much sick time.
Maybe this is not a part of the conversation, but could be. Would they be like under like the federal threshold of income like a youth can make in a year before they're like financially like required to, like, I don't know what the federal number is, but
I haven't looked at the updated number. I know I looked when my kids were looking last year, but I don't know if I can't speak to it right now.
Yeah. Just something to consider. I don't know it off the top of my head.
I mean, obviously, hopefully they would have their parents helping them fill out their necessary tax forms.
Yeah, well, I have a kid and I think he can be responsible sometimes and yeah, just a thought.
Any other questions about any of those positions before I move on to just some cost element factors that we're looking at, some changes for next year? Okay. So we have several bargaining agreements that are in place. We have a agreement with our police department. Then we are nearing the end of the second year of that agreement. That's in effect through June 30th of 2027. That agreement calls for a 2.5% cost of living adjustment next year. We also have a relatively new agreement. We're ending the first year of an agreement with our Umatilla Police Sergeants Association. That one's also in effect through June 30th of 2027. That agreement calls for a cost of living adjustment equivalent to the CPIW index for all cities January to January, which for this year is 2.2%. That is similar to our public works bargaining agreement that we have in effect. It's in effect for an additional year through June 30th of 2028. Their agreement also calls for the same index, but the two agreements vary slightly. The sergeant agreement has a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4%. And so the 2.2 falls within their range. The public works one has a minimum of 2.5 and a maximum of 4.5. And so 2.2 is under the minimum. So it would become the 2.5. When we look at cost of living adjustments for all of our non-union employees, we look at several different items. We look at the consumer price index, and again, 2.2. We look at what the annual inflation rate was for the year, which was 2.4. And then we look at what the Social Security Administration did for their cost of living adjustment, which was 2.8. And so we are recommending that we average the three of those, be pretty consistent with what the rest of our staff are getting, and bring to council a cost of living adjustment recommendation of 2.5% for next year for our non-union employees. I gave you guys good news about property insurance rates last night, but I do not have good news about medical insurance costs. So medical insurance premiums are going to rise by 14% next year, which is significant. Our dental plans our employees have two options for dental. Both of those plans are pretty similar in cost and going up by 2%. Vision's also going up by 2%. And then we have a lot of lower cost items that are on our health insurance invoices, like life insurance and accidental death and disability. Life insurance is increasing by 3% and the others are remaining flat. To make things a little bit more complicated, our current health insurance plan is changing. They're increasing the deductible and out-of-pocket maximums. We did do some analysis on what that means, especially when looking at our collective bargaining agreements. The collective bargaining agreements, for the most part, call out that will remain on the copay F plan. And it specifies copay plan F. And so that is the one that will have the higher amounts. If we did want to open up bargaining and move into a new plan that's equivalent to what we currently have, they've told us that that new plan would actually be an increase of 20%. And so we did some cost analysis on what that would take, and we are recommending to stay on our current plan, although the deductible and limits would be higher. And rather than paying that delta of the 6% to go to the other plan, just to increase the amount that we contribute annually per employee to our HRA VIBA, essentially our health savings accounts, up that by $250 a person. That would cost us about $15,000 extra, rather than switching from copay F to the new plan, which would be almost $87,000. Our current, the city participates in Oregon PERS. Our current PERS rates are in effect for one more year until June 30th of 2027. And so we aren't anticipating any PERS increases next year. They actually have already given us preliminary forecasted rates for the following biennium, and our rates are actually scheduled to go down in the next biennium, just slightly by like 1 or 2%, which I have not seen a PERS decrease since I've been here. So that is good news.
Do you have any idea, is that just driven with people aging out and moving off
So
of PERS?
that's definitely some of it. The tier 1 is the most expensive, and obviously you have people aging out of that system. Also, the investment return on the portfolio has been a lot higher over the past few years. Interest rates have been higher, and so the cost recovery on PERS as a whole has been better than what we had seen in prior years.
Is this liability funded through a separate budget? Like, do we have money set aside to cover the increase in PERS every year?
So do we have money set aside ahead of time? No, we've absorbed it into our budget and into our annual budget. But like I said, we're not going to see an increase, and then we'll actually see a decrease. Okay. That is all I have on personnel expenses. If there's no other questions, I'll move into debt.
Can I ask a question real quick on the medical insurance?
Yeah.
In the health retirement account, are city employees allowed to make withdrawals from that during the time that deposits are being made?
So you can request reimbursement for eligible medical expenses.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we can as we go. One nice thing about our plan is that it's not an HSA, it's an HRA, so it's not a use it or lose it. The funds continue to accumulate, and a lot of people will build up that balance and actually use that to help pay like their insurance premiums after they retire.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, those of us that have little kids don't ever seem to accumulate that. Okay. So this next section really just talks about what current debt we have outstanding as the city. This is going to be pretty repetitive from what most of you have heard in prior years. We do have a loan from DEQ. We took that out in 2017 to fund construction of our industrial wastewater line. That note has a 30-year repayment term. It has a really low 1.56% interest rate. Our total initial principal was around 2.3 million, but we are down to 2.1 million, and we have a biannual payments due in August and February for a combined total of about 110,000 per year. We also did have a shorter term design loan for that system, and that was paid off in the current fiscal year. So that will be a reduction of debt for the following year of about $60,000. We did a 6th Street water line improvement project back in 2019 ahead of the street improvement project. The final loan amount on that project was $667,000. We did do an interim financing contract on that and then refunded it with the Oregon Bond Bank, which happened in 2020. That loan has interest rate of 2.5%, and the payments aren't consistent. They vary slightly. Next year's payment is about $33,000, and our current outstanding balance is $485,000 on that loan. The next loan that we have is an agreement with Banner Bank for the purchase of the golf course from December of 2020. Our original agreement was for 1.7 million. That's a 20-year term and a 2.79% interest rate. We pay $57,000 for twice a year on that one, and our outstanding principal balance is just over 1.4 million. Back in 2021, the city completed an update to our wastewater facility plan. We updated our water and wastewater plans at the same time and got $20,000 grants for both. We were able to fund the rest of water, but took out this loan because the interest rate was crazy low and we could make more with our money in the bank, candidly. The interest rate on that loan was 0.54%. So our current balance on that one is 116,000. We recently completed construction, the pedestrian bridge here in Umatilla. The majority of the bridge replacement was funded by FEMA. They covered 75% of the project, or about $4.7 million. We also had some insurance proceeds. And then we received a $500,000 emergency grant from Business Oregon. So we have not completely closed out the loan yet. We're working through some final steps with our contractor, but we anticipate that that loan will come in right around $1 million. Because that project hasn't been completely closed out, we don't anticipate any debt service amount. It's in the upcoming fiscal year. It'll likely be the following before we have any payments due on the bridge.
Do you have interest rate on that yet, or will that be determined at the time it's closed?
Yeah, I do not right now. That's another one. Business Oregon is pretty notorious for doing those interim funding agreements. And so that's another one that's set up like that. They'll end up doing the bond bank sale when we close out the project. Okay. Item F there is our CTUIR point of diversion and pump station improvement project. So we are currently working on a project to enlarge and upgrade the surface water diversion and related pipeline transmission facility on the Columbia River. That will connect into the new water treatment facility that we talked about earlier. The bulk of that project, so the construction is estimated at $25.2 million. And the city executed a loan for about 40%, or about $10 million from Business Oregon. The debt payments on that loan will be paid by industrial users, not factored into residential user rates. And then the delta in the funding above the 10 million was given as a cash contribution from those industrial developers.
Melissa, is that a typo in the paperwork here when it says or approximately 1.1 million?
No, so I'm talking about the construction loan. We do also have a design loan. So the design loan, again, is for about 40% of the project, the design portion. And so we estimate that one's going to end up closing out around 1.1 million. As of June 30th, the balance was just over $1 million. Unfortunately, we didn't have all of our permits in hand to get out to bid before this previous in-water work window. So we now have the permits that we need. We anticipate bidding late summer and then closing out the loan in the fall. The planning loan itself carries a 7-year term and a 1.54% interest rate. And then we'll get our amortization schedule once we have that final amount and can close out that loan. It will be several years before we have to make any debt service payments on the construction loan because that project itself will take 2 years to construct. The city is also extending water and sewer services out to Power City and the Brownell area. So I'm going to kind of combine G and H here. The water portion of the project is about $8 million. And we are funding the water project with a variety of sources. So we received a community development block grant of about 1.9 million on that project. And then we received bipartisan infrastructure law, or what they call bill funds, of 6 million. And that was really good because we got into that program at a time where there was a lot of forgivable federal funding. And so out of the 6 million, it has 3.3 in principal forgiveness. And so we anticipate completing the entire $8 million project at a cost of $2.7 million loan that will carry interest at 2.83%. That project is still under construction, so it's much like the others, we won't have any loan payments due in the next fiscal year. For the sewer portion, that project is a little bit more expensive. It's 11.3 million. It is entirely loan funded. And as we were just getting started on the project, we've only drawn down about 68,000 on the loan.
Are these numbers just for the project itself, or does this include the potential homes you guys were saying that may get the free connection to the water and sewer?
Those amounts do not include the connection grant. That's for the construction and engineering portions only. And then ahead of the police station construction, in anticipation of that, we did purchase the property adjacent to the police station. We entered into a note with UEC, their revolving loan fund, with a term of 10 years and an interest rate of 7.5%. That was an interesting opportunity because UEC's revolving loan fund, the more people that utilize that, they grow their loan fund and continue to fund more local projects. There is no early repayment penalty on that. And since that one carries a higher interest rate, that might be one that we want to look at paying off early.
So is that the excuse me, was that the land behind where they're starting to work on it?
Yeah, it's where those little tiny houses used to be behind the current police station.
So is that where the new building's gonna be?
Yeah.
Is the old one going away or?
So where the current police station building is now will be where the parking lot for the new police station is.
Okay,
And then the new building will kind of wrap around that in an L shape.
so they're just gonna stay and work in there until their other part's done?
Until they can move in.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And then we have, that's all of our existing debt. We do have some anticipated future debt plans for the upcoming year. We talked earlier in the water section about some identified reservoir projects that are in there. We have recoding of reservoirs and an additional reservoir that's needed and called out in our water master plan. The design and land acquisition for that is estimated at $829,000. And we have identified the Special Public Works Fund planning loan as a way to pay for that. They're typically low interest with a 7-year repayment term. And then also discussed earlier in the wastewater division, we have several improvements that are needed at our wastewater treatment plant. The design for all of those are currently already being designed. We are funding the design with cash out of our wastewater reserve and have an approved construction loan from DEQ for a $10.7 million project. Oh, Scott, you on there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm kind of proud of myself because I never raised my hand in school. I got in trouble for it a whole bunch. So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to reiterate something, and it's just because we don't do enough of the personal stuff in budget committee. But I've been in municipalities for 25 years. I know it makes me old, but I've been doing this for a long time. And at no time have I ever seen a city bite off a $15 million project to help out some neighboring communities do what we're doing in Power City and Brownell. And too often I see the and I don't like to get political. I let Dave stay in that realm, but too often I see the negativity of the city and what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we don't ask permission. We just do things without it. I just wanted everybody to be aware that we bit this off to help our neighbors, and because we care about them, and that's what we do in northeastern Oregon. We care about our neighbors. We take care of people, and if you went to anybody to say, "Is this a financially good idea?" It is not. We did this and we're working through it and we're going to make it. And Melissa's just killed it. And so is Dave with the legislature and everybody else. But too often this is not enough personal in budgeting. And we have done a lot for these folks and rightly so. I just wanted everybody to be aware that that's what we do and that's what we were involved in. And I know you'll hear a lot of negativity about why we haven't paved streets back or why we're not doing this or doing that. We bit the big stuff off first to make sure people had clean drinking water and a place to flush their toilet to, and that somebody will take care of it. And so we go through all this, and I just wanted to put a little more personal touch on it. That's why we do these things, and we're we're lucky to be able to do these things for people, and I just wanted to let you know.
Thanks, Scott. Any question on any of our debt, current or foreseen? Okay. I dare say we have made it to our last section. You look like you have something to say, Bruce. No?
Yeah, it's not germane right now, but it's like I mean, however many years it's been now that I've been involved in the budget committee, 5, 6, whatever it's been, I continue to be shocked in not a good way for how much project costs increase, and there's not a darn thing we can do about it other than make the best choices we can when the time comes. And it's I mean, it's really not, it's a comment about the whole situation rather than anything else. It's like, 200 million here, 70 million there, 10 million there. It's like, yeah, let's pay off something with a 7.5%. It's like we can actually pay off something with a 7.5% interest. Let's go shop for the 0.5%. I mean, you've done that in the past and done a great job of it, and I'm certain we're going to be looking at it again in the next few years.
Just to kind of build on what you said, Bruce, could you talk a little bit about like the health of the reserves and where we are financially as we take on more debt?
That's our next section. Yep. So, yeah, you have foreshadowed. I will preface this conversation with, I do not have reserve percentages to give you tonight. I don't have a proposed balanced budget. I'm not there yet. But I can talk about what our funds are doing. So first, let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about general fund. So that fund continues to grow. As we talked about last night, our current year property tax collections decreased slightly, and we expect next year to be pretty flat. We are very, very fortunate to have enterprise zone and SIP agreement funds that are in place that allow us to continue to meet our budgetary goals. I will say, I think this year is probably the smallest amount of growth that we will see budget-wise in the general fund in comparison to the past several years. Because property taxes are staying flat, and we do have a delay with PDX 260 up on South Hill due to their power supply issues, and PDX 121 out on Wanapa Road not having broke ground yet. We just aren't seeing those payment in lieu of taxes come into our revenue as fast as we initially planned. That being said, we did talk about electrical franchise revenue, and that is going up. And so we expect about a net increase. I would expect next year, as far as revenue goes, for about $2 million to the general fund.
What were the percentage increases we had on? Because it was the electrical increases. Was that just directly to Mitchell Electric, or was that across the board?
So the electrical franchise increase is due to the fact that we now have Pacific Power supplying the data center on in South Hill. Our UEC franchise has a cap on it through 2029. Once that cap lifts in 2029, I expect another significant increase in franchise revenue because they are hitting their cap, I believe, early second quarter. And so we're gonna expect that revenue to grow exponentially. I would expect probably an extra $3 million in that first year, and then every year thereafter. But now that the one data center campus is in Pacific Power's territory, that revenue has grown from, which was around $300,000 a year, to now $1.4 million a year. So that's a little over $1 million. And then our enterprise zone payments, in comparison to the previous fiscal year, we were anticipating about $900,000. So between the two of them, that's where I got our $2 million. Of course, a lot of our other smaller fees will fluctuate. I mentioned, last night that our state revenue sharing funds are going down slightly. We expect to receive about $20,000 less from the state into the general fund. And so it's an interesting year. But we're fortunate to still have an increase. with growth, as you guys have seen over several of the last years, it just comes with increased costs. And so it's going to be a balancing act as we work to put this proposed budget together for you. And we will, and out of all of the items that we've brought you, we will provide a list of what we were able to fund, did not fund. And then in the next meeting, we can talk about if the committee agrees with our recommendations on what we do and don't include in that proposed budget document.
Are you going to want any input before that time?
I will ask for input. I will give you guys via email the proposed budget document ahead of our next meeting and allow hopefully about 2 weeks for comment back and forth either via email or in person. Dave and I are always happy to meet with you guys. And then I'll put a summary of those conversations together and we'll continue the conversation at our May meeting. Moving on from the general fund, we'll talk about the water fund and water reserves. So we do know that our operational expenses are continuing to rise, and then we are also in the upcoming years going to have that increased debt service from the Power City Brownell project. What we've done over the past several years with water and sewer has taken an approach of requesting equivalent percentage increases for both funds. This year, we're not doing that, just realizing, looking at what CPI did, we're recommending a lower increase of 2.5% for wastewater because that reserve fund is in a more stable, healthy condition than our water fund. And so we are requesting a 6% increase in water and a 2.5% increase in wastewater. We have looked at these amounts annually at council's request. It's a lot easier to bite off small incremental increases than it is to do an increase every 5 or 10 years. And when we look at water, the percentage looks higher, but our water rates in comparison to our sewer rates are a lower component usually of a utility bill. So a 6% increase in water is not as much as it would be as a 6% increase in wastewater. We will bring a fee resolution to City Council in April, and included in that, I will have a breakdown of what that would actually mean to the average residential customer when we present that to council.
What's the percentage rate for each, do you know? Like what's the cost of 1% for water? Versus
We don't have
1%?
that analysis on me. But I will have it when we prepare the fee resolution and bring it up.
Do you have an idea? Like, is water like 3 times more, 4 times, like 5 times?
Sewer is definitely more expensive
Sewer,
than
yeah.
water. Yeah, sewer is, I think, around $60 a month at this point. I can tell you.
Ours is like 70 something.
Well, you got a leak somewhere, buddy.
That's what I'm wondering. I know.
Sewer is a flat rate.
Is it? Yeah, I think it was like $74 or something. It was a lot.
63.
How was it?
Mhm.
I stand corrected.
And then the base rate for most of our average residential customers, it depends on their meter size, if they're a 3/4 or 1 inch, but it ranges between $26 and $30. And so the way that our water rates are structured, we have a base rate and then a consumption rate. So depending on how many thousands of gallons the residential customer uses, they're charged at that rate. Typically, the standard is about 7,500 gallons for a residential customer. So that would work out to about $43 a month in water right now. And so as we look at 6% of that is about $2.60. And then what did I tell you about $63?
Yeah.
That's $1.57 a month. So about $4 a month.
Thank you.
Our street fund has been pretty volatile. We heard again that the state street fund is going to stay pretty close, but slightly decreased by about $7,000 next year. And the state funds certainly don't generate enough revenue to cover all of the fund's operating costs. So the general fund is having to supplement the street fund to continue to do ongoing maintenance for road improvement. Our capital reserve fund, we've been successful at transferring money in incrementally to save up for major equipment or other capital projects. We have had several projects that are going to be falling off of that list. We're finishing the business center, so that fund has been there. And then I think we made a couple large equipment purchases that we've been saving up for in the current fiscal year, so those will also fall off. Our library fund is healthy. I mentioned that we anticipate seeing an increase next year from the Umatilla Special Library District of about 24,000, I think it was. And the city general fund has also continued to transfer funds into supplement library operations as they've continued to increase programming. And so the fund there we consider healthy. Our refuse fund, essentially it's just a pass-through fund. So we contract with sanitary disposal. And we do all of the administrative billing and coordination of garbage can delivery for them. In exchange, we have an 11% administrative fee off of their rates, and we retain a 5% franchise fee. The past couple years, we saw pretty big increases from sanitary disposal. When Waste Connections bought sanitary disposal, they hadn't done rate increases in a while, and then it took Waste Connections a little while to wrap their brains around everything that was going on. So we didn't really see, even after they purchased it, rate increases for 2 years. And then we saw some significant. Moving forward, we're tying our rate increases with them to that same CPI number that we talked about earlier. And so for next fiscal year, we expect a 2.2% increase for garbage. Our building department fund is I would say our healthiest fund, mostly because that revenue is heavily restricted and we can't spend it on very many things. And so we continue to have a lot of residential and industrial development, and then fund our building program with those revenues. We have a debt service fund that's basically inactive right now. So we paid off our 1978 water bond in December of 2018. And we're getting a couple dollars a year in past due property or property tax collections on that bond. We are going to bring a resolution to City Council to repurpose that fund to account for future debt service payments related to the new police station bond. And then our transient room tax fund.
Yes, our voices sound alike.
We do have our transient room tax fund. Our collections in that fund are higher than ever. We have really steady occupancy in our hotels from construction workers in the area. And then we also have an increased interest in local hotels, especially when you talk about our local events for landing days and rock the locks. We continue to fund the Chamber of Commerce with 50% of all TRT receipts that are collected. And then we also provide the Chamber with a $21,000 transfer from the general fund. And
question.
Yeah.
So with the money that goes to the chamber, isn't that who you were planning to try to move into the new business center?
Yes, they are currently in
The little building down by the.
yeah, which is a city-owned building as well.
So will moving them over make any changes to that? Will they still get half of it?
I don't anticipate. So, and you can speak if you.
I actually just met with their president a little bit today, but no, earlier when you talk about transfer to the chamber and this here, that's all the cash equivalents. They have stayed in that building for how many years now, rent free, other than they pay the utilities that are associated with the building. And so when they transfer over here, we're not anticipating any changes in cash equivalents. And here, instead of getting free rent there, they get free rent here.
Okay. And then they still get half of the receipts and the transfer from the general fund?
Yeah, so they use that for their operations. And right now we have a contract with the Chamber of Commerce that runs through this June. And so we'll be before City Council most likely in May with an updated draft proposal, and then in June for hopefully an executed final vote. The TRT is a city council decision. The 50% of the funds from lodging tax, it used to be a 70-30 split. Just the last legislature, as in like last month, they just updated it to a 50-50 split. So 50% of the funds collected in lodging tax has to go towards tourism related industries, and the other half now can go to the general fund for sole discretionary spending. The chamber's been a longstanding and good partner. I anticipate that to be a good contract negotiation. But the council, it can go towards the chamber, it can go towards a private party, it can go towards grant programs, anything that stimulates tourism in the area.
So if the other half goes into the general fund, how does that match up with the 21,000 transfer from the general fund?
So at the current moment, we're not actually transferring half into the general fund. In all previous fiscal years, as we mentioned, that split was 70-30. And so the way that it's structured right now is we would send 50%, and then the other 20% is still listed in as an available grant. That will now become fully discretionary, but all of the percent, since this is typically related to tourism, we've taken the approach and allocated the funds and just left them in the transient room tax fund because that's where our city festivals and events are. So really, the general fund is supplementing that. It doesn't make sense to transfer it to the general fund and transfer it right back.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then you will see a couple new funds in the proposed budget. So if you're wondering why you see a proposed amount and the historical is all zero, these are going to be brand new funds. City Council recently established a dedicated capital project fund to account for the receipt and expenditure of the bond proceeds for the replacement police station project. So you'll see that $19.8 million construction project flowing through there. We are going to be bringing a resolution to create a special revenue fund for Project Path as we continue to be the fiscal agent. Typically, we just had one revenue line item and one expense line item in the general fund, but we have a lot more interested cities now that Uruguay and Boardman joined, and just to be able to provide clear reports, we're going to create that fund. And then urban renewal funds. And so we will create an urban renewal fund to ensure transparent accounting and reporting of the tax increment financing revenues and related expenditures related to our urban renewal areas.
For clarity, on the urban renewal fund and Project Path, are those like things that the city council for transparency wanted to create, or are those like resolutions that the city has to like do to be?
As far as for the creation of a new fund, no, staff and the Project Path partners are recommending that City Council approve the special revenue fund. The urban renewal fund is required.
So the separating the Project Path Fund, you missed yesterday, but we pay for dispatch services. And historically speaking, there's been, less than transparent, less than really wonderful negotiations with dispatch funds. It looks like, in the presentation, it looks like we've, made some really good steps forward to getting along and having adult conversations about the dispatch fees. Along with that comes asking for some transparency. I guess I look at this and go back to, the Project Path and, pulling that out of our budget and having a standalone fund when we do have more partners looking at it. It looks to me like it's the right thing to do, and it's also the right thing to do to have standalone numbers. So when potential partners in the future, come to our doorstep, since we're the fiscal agent for it, it just makes it a lot easier and a lot cleaner to be able to talk to people about what this stuff costs. So we haven't requested it, but I think it's a great idea. For those things.
Path has as set up by the by the IGA. They set up the Path Advisory Committee, and so that's each represented city has, or each city in that agreement has a representative on that advisory committee, and that came out of the committee last month to create this new fund. Now that House Bill 4123 is completed, we've gone through the pilot program, we've got the building and stuff set up. We've now got to a point now. This is by every measure its own standalone service. And because it's set up through partnership funding and state funding, that was the recommendation, was to create its own fund.
I think it's great.
Yeah, and we really don't expect a lot of activity in the fund now that, in the first years of PATH, the city was the fiscal agent for a grant that had been granted to Umatilla County. And so the majority of the expenditures were flowing through the city's books. Now that in the current fiscal year, Stepping Stones was the recipient of the CAPCO funding. They took over most of the operational bills and invoices are being sent directly to Stepping Stones, so they're not flowing through the city. So really it's a minimal amount of accounting, and after the initial fund setup and chart of accounts coding, there's really no added administrative work that comes with having the fund. With that, you've heard it all from me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there, I guess, any last minute questions that anybody has about anything that we have discussed? As I mentioned earlier, if anybody wasn't here either on night 1 or 2, and after you have a chance to digest the other portion of the packet, feel free to reach out to myself, and Dave and I would be happy to meet with you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I notice in all this paperwork, the Umatilla Museum has not been mentioned. The city took over the building and is paying for asbestos abatement and a remodeling project. Could they include a new sign for the front of the building in that project?
We certainly can consider it. I don't think it
Because
has
it's
been
just,
anything.
just that little bitty sign out front. We need something much bigger that will call more attention to the fact that we have a museum and it is there.
I will add a note and we will do some research and get back to you.
With that said, we've asked for questions, but item 7 on the agenda is good of the order. So any comments from Budget Committee?
I have one for the good of the order, Bruce. I just want to highlight and kind of some sad news about the passing of former Mayor Mary Diedrich. It's heartbreaking to hear, and something that as we grow as a city, to see those who have honored our city by serving and giving their time and efforts to making our city a better place. I really want to appreciate and recognize the efforts that she had as mayor. And if you would mind joining me for a second for a moment of silence in honor of former Mayor Diedrich, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you all for joining me. Appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have for the good of the order.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Dennis mentioned that last night, and we chatted about it a little bit, but a moment of silence is really appropriate. Thank you very much. If there no,
I just want to say too, as the city continues to grow, and I know we talked a little bit about there's funds that are yet to come in and not when we anticipated, but I'm proud to say that the city's doing a lot of work to support the people that live here in terms of getting access to water, resources, parks and recreation, getting our community involvement increased. I know that personally for me, I've attended far more things in the last 3 years than I did in my first 3 years living here. So, I'm proud to say that. Also too, looking at the opportunities for the youth in the area. Some of our highlights, at least for me as a resident of Umatilla, is our youth sports. In the past, I remember first moving here and having to go to Hermiston for a lot of those things, and the partnerships that have been created through that, and the opportunities for employment. So I'm excited to see that we're offering and continuing to grow those programs for kids in the area, and as well as providing access to infrastructure. I know that there is growing frustrations. I live on power line, and driving up and down that road can be frustrating, but I'm always reminded of, there's less power lines above the ground. The sidewalks are getting expanded for kids to, better access the schools. And so I think the pain on that will be temporary, but I think the impact will be long lasting. So I do want to say thank you to everybody who's been involved with those projects, in the city, to have, the foresight to anticipate the growth and then incorporate that to benefit everybody. So I did want to make a mention of that.
Excuse me, I have a comment too. The concern I have, I love the idea of the visual aspects of the city improving. The facade, the business development downtown, I think that those are great projects. I love the project path. And I think that that is something that I hope that other communities statewide, countrywide can take on. So I'm very encouraged by that too. I just have to mention, because this is just this recurring concern that I have, is that there are so many projects going, and because there are so many projects going, there's more and more staff needing to be brought on, and more offices, the expansion of the city hall that you talked about, as well as the business center going in, that I had been under the assumption that that was going to take the place of the expansion of city hall. So I have concerns about that. Growing quickly can cause some potential breakdowns that can cost a lot of money also. And so I just want to I just need to speak to the fact that there needs to be some cautionary in the growth. And I always equate it to businesses, because that's what I've had the most experience in. And a business that grows too fast has a tendency to crumble at some point. So I just want to advise isn't quite the right word, but to just speak to a cautionary tale. Two things that jumped out at me, and I know that they're smaller. You guys have got big issues in this city. The water, the sewer, those are huge issues with all of the infrastructure that needs to be put in. But the two small things that jumped out at me in this is that coffee cup thing, the coffee cup project, and the potential for the purchase of a building in McNary, which would be fabulous to have that improved. But they both seem like money pits. And with all of the money that is being brought in and needing to be put into some strong infrastructure, is it wise to be purchasing more buildings, or to even keep that coffee cup building when it has a potential for so much expense, and what's the return that you expect to get from it? So $80,000 more for to clean up an area that maybe will never be clean. I don't know if you guys want to speak to that, or if it's a pet project. Everybody spoke about Coffee Cup Place like with nostalgia last night, but it just seems like it could be a waste of money.
So 80,000 was the total for that line item. I'd have to see if I think give me just a second.
In the grand scheme of things, that's a small number, I realize, but It just really jumped out to me.
It was 30,000 of the $80,000 line, yeah.
Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to public comment. Item number 8. Public comment segment allows the community members to share their opinions, raise concerns, and provide information directly to the Budget Committee. Comments should address budget-related issues and must not pertain to items scheduled for a public hearing on the same evening's agenda. If you wish to speak, please complete the sign-up sheet, including the topic you wish to address. Please begin by stating your name and address when called to the podium. Speakers are allotted 5 minutes unless otherwise directed. Okay, moving on to item number 9. Adjourn the meeting. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Councilmember McLean, I make a motion to adjourn this meeting at this time.
I have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Funderburk,
Aye.
Counselor Dennis McMillan,
Aye.
Counselor McLean,
Aye.
Mayor Sipe,
Aye.
Committee Member Zitter Cobb,
Aye.
Committee Member Simmons,
Aye.
Committee Member Cahill,
Aye.
Committee Member Pratt,
Aye.
Committee Member Osorio.
Aye.
Notes on your packet. That's great, and we don't want to furnish these, but they are public record, and so Nancy will just need to make a copy. Then you can have